Are you ready? Stand by.
Welcome to the Three Gun Show, brought to you by Armalite. This is episode 124, and I'm your host, Dave Hartman. My guest this week is former world-class international trap competitor and current three-gunner, Joe Pitha. But before we get into the interview, I want to tell you a couple cool things that we have going on here at the Three Gun Show. One, you heard me say earlier that this episode is brought to you by Armalite, and I have a special offer for you on Armalite gear that you'll hear after the show. Second, we're going to do a book club, which is kind of cool. So I've been meaning to read Brian Enos's classic book, Practical Shooting Beyond Fundamentals, for some time now. So Nick Miller, Bill Corcoran, and I are going to read it and record a podcast about it that will drop May 10th. I encourage you to pick up a copy as well and read it so you can join in the discussion. More on how we're going to do that a bit later down the road, but you can pick up your copy at threegunshow.com/Enos, E-N-O-S, and there's also a link in the show notes as well. So get your copy, and we're gonna do this book club style, Oprah book club style. All right, in this podcast, Joe and I had just got done shooting the 2017 Extreme Bullets Texas Three Gun Championship, which was a ton of fun to shoot. If you're interested in hearing more about that match, you can actually check it out. I did a match recon episode, which was number 123, where I go in depth on what to expect from the match. So Joe and I get into a lot of cool topics here based on his experience traveling the world to shoot international trap. Some of the topics we cover include what people get wrong about shotgun fitment, developing your mental game with the help of sports psychologists, taking advantage of your opportunities while you still can, normalizing your nutrition for match performance, and much, much more. So enjoy this one with Joe Pitha. All right, welcome to the Three Gun Show. We are at Copperhead Creek Shooting Club, and I'm here with Joe Pitha. Joe, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
I'm excited to have you. We just got done shooting the Texas Three Gun Championship, Extreme Bullets Texas Three Gun Championship, brought to you by Afraid Munitions, I believe it is.
That's correct.
And I got to tell you, it looked bad for us when we started this, but it turns out we were probably on one of the luckiest squads.
Yep.
Because it is about to downpour like biblical rains.
Yes.
I saw a guy with an arc out there. It is coming. And we just finished shooting.
We did. Jansen shot, lightning struck, started to rain, we were out.
Yep.
So awesome.
Yep.
So.
And it was a nice little exclamation point on Jansen's run too, to have that little lightning bolt at the end there. Nice end to a great weekend.
Yes, it was. It was a fun squad.
Yeah, it was a fun squad. So we this is the first time we got to shoot together, which was a lot of fun.
Yep.
So you and I have been at a couple matches together, and then we've run into each other here and there. So this is the first time we got to shoot together, and it was a good experience. And there was some times where you were like, "Hey, Dave, if you're open to advice, I got a couple things here." And I'm like, "Dude, help me."
Yeah, I try. It's a lot of times I'll see people out, and I see I know who they are, kind of, or I know what level they're at. And I go up to them and I say, "Hey, would you mind some advice?" And I say, "Try this, and this is the reason why." I don't just say do it because I do it. Do it because this makes sense to me.
Right.
And and I let it go. And if they choose to do that, then they choose to follow it. So.
Yeah, well, and it's good to get that kind of feedback too, and especially for me and at my level, because I still have so much to learn.
Yep.
I've been shooting since 2011.
Yep.
And I think I made more progress in the last year than I did in like the first 5.
Yep.
But I still have like so far to go.
Don't we all? I mean, I've go to matches and I'm like, dude, I learned something, and it's still, obviously, it's just still progressing. And you learn this little thing, you learn that little thing. They get narrower and narrower the better you get, because you've accumulated all this knowledge. But still, you never go to a shoot and never learn anything. Yeah. It's always something.
Well, so accumulated knowledge, I want to get into that quite a bit, because I know that you have an interesting background.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people can benefit from your knowledge in that arena. So let's kind of dive into that a little bit. Why don't you give the audience an idea of who you are off the range? Maybe a little bit about your life, and then let's talk about how you got into shooting.
Okay. I grew up in New Jersey, of all places, gun-hating state, but we lived in a good part of New Jersey. We had a farm and places to shoot and good police force that, didn't mind us shooting, never complained. But that's where I grew up. And my family, my great-grandfather had started a business in New Jersey making molds for concrete block machines. So, and my grandfather ran it, my dad ran it. So, I eventually got into it. Started at the ground level, kind of worked my way up. Not really, you get some perks being the owner's son, grandson even. But I got into the engineering aspect. And that's where I am now, but with a different company. Unfortunately, our family business went out in 2011 after the downturn in the economy. We were hugely affected, and we just couldn't survive. But a company down in Maryland picked me up and said, "Hey, you've been in this industry for so long. Come work for us." I said, "Of course. I don't have a job.
Yeah.
I'll go down." And so I moved down to West Virginia, right near Maryland, and so right now I'm working as a mechanical engineer, and we make molds for concrete paver machines and block machines.
Do you guys do like those decorative molds where it looks like rocks are lying
we
there?
do all sorts of stuff like that. And we're getting into more advanced stuff with moving parts and not so much hydraulics because they're a pain, but more gravity where you can have what we call an embossed face.
Yeah.
So it looks like a rock and it's on the side. Well, in a block machine, that's impossible to do because you fill the top, you press it down,
can't get it out,
and you push it. Yeah, you get negative draft, you're done. But when the sides move away, then you can push the block out.
Interesting.
So yeah.
So we're in Texas, obviously, and when you're driving out of here, take a note of the overpasses as you get on the highway because there's Texas stars on freaking everything, and it's molded concrete, right?
And a lot of that's kind of a different industry. That's probably precast.
Oh, okay.
With bridges and stuff. The stuff we do is pavers, retaining walls, and small product. When you see bridges and that sort of thing, sound barriers, that's all precast. Different industry.
Gotcha.
Because that's all made with like urethane forms and 10 by 10 feet. They fill them up, let them set, then they're ready to go.
Right.
So.
Okay.
But no, it's kind of the same industry, but not. But yeah, I'll take notice.
So you shot on like family land growing up then?
Yeah.
And so just kind of like grew up plinking in?
Yeah, I was hunting at 10. I shot my first deer at 10 with a double-barreled Parker shotgun, of all things. I mean, they're nice shotguns. They're expensive. That's what I shot. So I was 10 when I shot my first deer, and went on from there. Hunted all my life, bow hunted, plinked.
Yeah.
My brother and I in the summer would fill our pockets with 22s and go shoot. We had a dump. We shot at the dump. We go and shot every animal we could, of course, as being kids. You just squirrels and chipmunks and unfortunately birds. But you can edit that out if the law enforcement's watching. I think
I wonder what the statute of limitations.
Yeah, I think that's over. But anyway, as kids, that's what you do.
Jersey game warden's gonna come out and get you.
But that was back in the day when you could do that, and nobody called the police on you, and it was a whole different environment growing up, and we had a great time. So that's where I learned to plink. When I was in my teens, the mayor of our township bought a shooting club right near us, and we were friends with him, and I started working there as a trap boy. So, I'd pull the button, keep score, and do all that.
Oh, no kidding.
Well, what I would do is I'd work a couple rounds, and he'd give me a box of shells and a round of trap, and I'd go shoot. So I'd work and shoot, Then I got to the point where I was shooting good, so I decided to just shoot. And he put in what we call a bunker, an international trap. It has 15 traps in it. It's pretty long. And he put that in because his son was into international trap as well. And that's where I kind of got my start shooting competitively, right there.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Well, and so it's amazing how life works, right? Because that was
early 80s.
sort of like kismet, right? I mean,
What's that?
It's just like happenstance of, hey, this guy offered me a job. Like you didn't actually seek out trap because trap was interesting to you.
No, just because we knew him, and
Yeah.
it was a job for a young kid, and I was a shooter, and we'd grown up together, and his son, and we had, we were just, it was part of that, and that's how, and it is interesting how things flow together.
Yeah, no kidding.
And you find a niche, and you're like, there's my talent.
Yeah.
And then you just feed on that and watch it go through,
So when you said when you started to get good, you just kind of focused on shooting. At what level, or what was it that made you think like, oh, I'm pretty good, or was it someone had to tell you? Or
No, I mean, I would go to more regional shoots, state shoots, and see how well I was doing. I guess I probably started, I'm going to say in maybe 84, shooting a little bit. By 1986, I have to watch my dates. That's a while ago. I went to the Nationals and made the U.S. shooting team.
Oh, no
Actually,
kidding.
it's like the development team. So you have the development team, you have the national team. So you're the juniors, you're the you're up-and-coming shooters.
Right.
So
now, what is the organization there? Is it the United States Shooting Team, or is that
back
associated
then
with
it was actually the NRA.
Oh, okay.
They were the what do you call the head? There's a name for it.
like sanctioning body?
Yeah,
type
sanctioning body.
Okay.
They were the sanctioning body for that. So we had to be NRA members, and we were already. But that's how we got into it. But now it's a U.S. shooting team. The NRA broke off at some point.
Right.
I don't remember when, and now it's a U.S. shooting team.
So international trap, you said there's a lot of bunkers.
Yeah, international
I'm not familiar
trap.
with that.
You have 5 different shooting positions that are in a straight line. I believe they're 17 yards from the front of the trap house. The bunker is ground level, and it has 15 traps in it.
Wow.
Each trap is preset. So in stage 1, you have a right, a left, and a straightaway. Now the straightaway can be 0 to 5 degrees, some, from 5 to 45, whatever, 25 degrees up and down. And same with the right and left one. So, and typically you're supposed to get 2 rights, 2 lefts, and 1 straightaway at each station. But you shoot 1 shot here, 1 clay, move to the next station, shoot 1 there, and the squad just goes and goes and goes and goes in order. But the targets are faster than American trap. They're harder because they're thrown harder, or thrown with more force. So they have to be a harder. Back then you got 2 shots per target. So everybody shot an over and under. But it's a very interesting sport. I mean it's evolved since then. I haven't followed up on the rules. It's been 20 plus years since I've shot that. So. But it's and then you had international skeet, which I didn't do.
Right.
Because skeet's a woman's game. You can edit that out. There's always a conflict between trap and skeet shooters, You know where your targets are going each time. Well, it was fun.
I probably should have mentioned I don't edit much out.
Don't worry. I'm not worried.
So, well, okay, that's so international trap, you don't know then where your targets are coming in?
Not typically. Okay. Again, you're supposed to get 2 rights, 2 lefts, and a straightaway. So by the end, you should, if you've got 2 rights and 2 lefts, then you should get the straightaway. And it's a computer-controlled machine, so if it was running right and the person running it back then, you should get that. But there's nothing to say you can't, and you don't anticipate because something could happen.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and there's no rule.
Oh,
or there is, I don't remember.
It's like a gentleman's rule or something.
You can't argue it. I don't think. I was supposed to get the straightaway, and okay, nobody,
right.
Nobody's keeping track. It's just the computer says you're supposed to get this, and this. But somebody hits the wrong button back then. Somebody hits a switch. And we'd always mess with people.
Oh, I'm sure.
When we had 15 switches on this old machine, and you could flick the one and it would throw that machine. Well, if I knew the guy and I knew he was waiting for the right hand target, I'd flip the left one and he'd go pull and it's going to go this way and the target would go. We'd have a good laugh. But so that was growing up, and that was there. But yeah, so you're supposed to get a certain array of targets if you in most cases you did.
So what's the competition like? Is it like 3-gun where it's like a whole day, it's an intense thing, you shoot multiple rounds?
Yep. Typical day back then was 100 targets. So you had 4 rounds of trap. You had your squad, and you just go in order. Your squad 1, 2, 3, 4, back to 1, 2, 3, 4, and you shoot the same setting on the trap. On a multiple day setup, if you shot 200, 100, and 100, they would between days they would change the traps. In other words, instead of this one being 45 and this one being 35, they change this one to 20 and this one. So you don't have the same array 2 days in a row.
Oh, okay.
So
cool.
It's a little different. But yeah, back then it was 100 and 100, and it was an all-day thing, kind of.
Right.
And and it's way different than 3-gun. Obviously, it's more disciplined, I would say. More, you're just focused so narrowly on what you have to do.
Right.
Whereas 3-gun is like,
so much.
I know everything. And
well, I imagine it's similar to like the difference between 3-gun and like USPSA pistol match, right? Where you're talking about mastery of a single gun, and they're saving like half step. And
I would say even let's take it back one more to Steel Challenge. Where Steel Challenge is really going to be this all the time.
Yeah,
that's like trap. I mean, it was always this. Whereas USPSA can get a little bit crazy with targets and rails and jumping on trampolines and stuff like that. Whereas Steel Challenge it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's always this. That's how I would relate.
Interesting.
Our action sports to that.
That's pretty cool. So then, Joe, it has to be like eventually just all turns into a mental game and sort of.
Oh, yeah. Then that's all it is. I mean, especially in trap, it's being able to concentrate 200 times.
Right.
And getting your eyes right and focusing and knowing where to hold and where that target comes out. Making sure the physical part's right, but I mean the gun's in the right place and everything feels right. But the mental game to be able to do that 200 times in a row is intense. It really is. And that's all it ever turns into.
Right.
And that's where, when I look back, I go, all that I learned from there relates to this like tenfold.
Really?
Because I can come in and I can look at a stage, I can get it in my head, and boom, it's there. Now I go over it and over and over and over it and build that mental picture where I see the stage in my head. I know where every target is, everything I'm supposed to do. And then all I do is when the buzzer goes, hit execute. You don't think, you just do.
So we should probably say that people are going to be hearing a little bit of background noise. There's a steel roof, and the rain is coming.
Oh, it's here.
It's here.
And you know what? I feel so sorry for the people that have to shoot.
I do, too.
I'm sure they stopped, but,
Yeah, especially because the lightning. So
yeah,
we might be getting some refugees pretty soon. But
yeah, I'm sure.
So for a lot of people, focusing on that stage plan and getting that stage plan in your head and then executing it is difficult, especially people that are newer at the game or mid-level.
Yep.
So all those reps that you've had over the years with international trap have contributed to what you can do now as far as stage planning goes?
Absolutely, because back then I shot not only local, regional, I shot national, international shoots. I went to world championships in Italy and in Egypt and Cuba and Venezuela, some places you can't go now, some places you go easier now. But so I traveled, extensively and shot in these bigger competitions. Well, and I had training at the Olympic Training Center. I was there for about 2 years, and we had actual mental, we had sports psychologists come in.
Really?
And do exercises with us to help us with our mental game, because they know at that point, physically you can shoot.
Right.
It's your mental plan that you need to work on. So
interesting.
Yeah.
So the Olympic Training Center is like a monk monastery type thing where it's all Zen and
a lot of it. I mean, it's you're there to shoot, and what's nice about that is back then they provided everything. They fed you. They had a cafeteria. They gave you medical. All the ammo you could. Well, I had two, 3 gun lockers full of ammo, guns. Just some were mine, some weren't. I just go in and just take ammo, go to the range, shoot.
That's awesome.
It was a great
Sounds
time.
like a dream.
But yeah, I mean, the mental part is a big thing because we all, we could all shoot. It's just, and what defined the best of us was, how that mental game was.
Mm-hmm.
And the same applies here, I'm sure.
So now, so give me an idea like how old you are.
I'm 47.
So you're 47
now, but
so in the 80s you're a teenager.
Yep.
When you went to the-
88. I'm 18, so
Okay.
I'm in my early 20s when I go out to Colorado at the training center. And
So early 20s. Now, do you have to be convinced that that mental management is important? Did they have to like talk you into it, or you just knew at that point?
You just know
because of your experience up to that point.
Yeah, you shoot enough, you learn that I can shoot, but why did I miss that target? Well, I wasn't focused on it. Why weren't you focused on it? Because your mental game wasn't there. It's not because you can't be conscious. You have to shoot unconsciously because your subconscious is what can drive everything. It's so powerful. It's your conscious mind that'll screw stuff up. Yeah. Sometimes. I mean, sometimes it can help you, but most of the time it'll mess you up.
I feel like for me personally, it took a long time to understand like the power of the mind, the power of the mental game, and the power that you have to, change everything in your life by the way you think. And I personally would not have been ready for that message in my early 20s. So it's interesting that you were, first of all. And do you think it was the years of the competition that led up to it that got you there, or did you know that at an early age?
No, I think it's just the competition. You just that's something you develop, because again, you could physically shoot the gun. It's just how do you imagine shooting that target? I mean, how do you you get that mental image and enforce that positive aspect into it. It's like out here shooting. I picture every shot as a perfect shot, and I see every shot, boom, where my sights look like on each target. And I burn that in so that when you say go, it's already there. I just hit the go switch and everything should be there. Same thing with back then in trap. You imagined every target breaking, first shot, every target right. It didn't matter how hard wind didn't. You imagined that, and that's part of your mental training is to enforce that positive aspect. You never miss.
Right.
And it's, and that's what all that. Even back then, even though I took a gap in shooting for a while, it's still there.
Right.
The mental aspect of it.
So, I want to talk about that gap because we touched on that earlier in the weekend. But as far as like the positive mental image, I got to ask you a question. So, we talked about this earlier, but I think the audience can benefit from it too. Slugs, right? So we just shot a stage, 2 slugs, pretty close. What, 40 yards? Would you say?
Yeah, it was.
They're BC zones, and they're like right next to each other, right?
Yep.
So pretty good probability if you have your dope, you're going to hit those targets.
Yep.
But in 3-gun, a lot of times we'll load a mulligan, right? And some guys will load 1 for each target. So the obvious thing there when you step up is, 4 slugs, 2 targets, and then you have, you can burn them or whatever, and then go into your clay array and your loading. And there was a lot of clays after we were done, so there was a lot of bird shot. So that space in your tube matters on, especially in TAC ops, right? So I looked at that and I was like, well, I'm gonna hit those, but I'm gonna give myself 1 mulligan. I'm gonna load 3, but that to me seems counterintuitive or counter to like the positive mental image, because now you're planning a mic, right? And when I do my walkthrough, I always go ding, burn, clay, and that's how I do my walkthrough. It's like, so why am I doing that? I mean, I get the downside. There's a lot of time to recover from that if you screw it up. But do you think that's bad mental imagery, and maybe that's doing us a disservice?
No, I don't, because I
next
believe.
Question.
Yeah, next one. No, and looking at it, you gotta have Plan A, but you also in 3-gun and Plan B and Plan C, because things are gonna happen out there that your gun may malfunction. I had it happen to me first time ever. I double feeded yesterday. I had 2 shells come on my lifter. I had to reach my thumb in and push it up. But, and it's like stuff can happen, and I didn't expect it.
Right.
So same thing with slugs. What happens if that slug doesn't go off? What if the ammo's bad? What if, you got to rack it out? What if, and I don't want to stand there and load slugs. So
Right.
I'm going to have 3. And my mental image is pouting, burn, and go, And in this particular stage that we're talking about, I didn't think that, loading one more, using that space meant anything because the amount of time you had to go down range. You had a ton of time to load and shoot. So I think it was a wash. It was just that safety measure. You know what? Okay, so when on that long range rifle stage, you reload 17 shells.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. So I mean, again,
that's a very good point.
Why did you bring a full mag? I brought 60.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
why?
I had a couple 30s and then 35 on my belt.
Yeah. Why?
So
because you never know. I mean, and it's. And I've been actually kind of fading away from that a little bit by not bringing a rifle mag. Like an extra one. Because if I figure my ammo's, knock on wood, always been good.
Yeah.
So if I get a misfeed, I can clear it. I don't blame the mag or the ammo.
Mm-hmm.
It's something anomalous that happened. I don't need to grab another mag because
that's
the same ammo. I don't think in the mag, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
So I've been trying, and what I do is I say, okay, I could save the weight. I could save more weight, but, and then I can run faster. I don't feel as clunky, and just use this one mag. So, but anyway, so loading 3 slugs, going back to that, is, again, I think it's something you got to do.
Right. So the upside of loading that 3rd slug is better than the downside of, like, getting in your head that you might miss.
Yeah, I mean, anything can happen, and now you got to load in the box.
Yeah.
Then you got a bird shot. Okay, now I got to burn one. Now I've got a whole nother plan that's really screwed up because now I got to watch where my feet are.
Right.
And I don't want to have to do that.
And now you're just standing there the whole time the clock's running.
Yeah.
And so you're not actually making progress down that stage.
You are not making progress. You are just standing there, twiddling your thumbs, throwing another slug in and hoping you load it. And what happens if you drop that one?
Yeah.
I mean, I've done it.
Or if you don't bring another slug
or
on
if
your
you
belt.
don't bring another slug. I mean, so there are definitely, you have to take your safeties and put them in place, or else, you're going to run in, we'll all do it. One day we'll run into it and we'll go, oops, I should have done that. And now there's my penalty.
Yep. Yep.
So.
Yeah. All right. Well, you convinced me. I'll keep loading a spare slug.
And, it all depends on the stage, too. I mean, it really does. It just, if it's paper, like I loaded slugs on stage 1.
Yeah.
And I only loaded what I needed because they were close, they were paper, and I had 100% confidence that I was going to hit them.
Yeah.
And if I wasn't, I had my pistol.
Yeah, I was.
So there's my backup. But,
I was the same way.
Again, I didn't have my pistol on stage 8, and so I couldn't use it anyway. But, I always have a backup plan to something.
Yeah.
You have to.
Well, yeah, it's important in 3-gun, too, because, like you said, it's not always perfect, and sometimes it goes south, and you need to quickly work through that problem and come up with a solution that's going to get you back on track and not lose as much time.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Joe, let's talk about that gap. So you said there's a gap. So when did you get out of shooting trap, and why was that?
Well, I had been at the Olympic Training Center for 2 years, shooting for the '92 Olympics. That was my goal. I ended up 6th, and they took the top 3, so I wasn't even the alternate. And, and at that point, I've been shooting a lot away from home. You're young. You don't have – where's your future?
Right.
My future wasn't in shooting competitively because nobody was paying me. So I decided to go home at that point and get a job at the family – continue my job at the family business, which – understand, let's go back even further. I was at the family business, and one day I just told my dad, I got to go. And I said, I'm leaving in April. I got to go to the Olympic Training Center. I got to shoot. I got to do this, and I left.
How'd that go?
Fine. He understood. I mean, it wasn't, your life is long.
Yeah.
This could be a short part of it, but you're young. You got to kind of go in that direction. If you hinder yourself, you're only going to kick yourself in the butt. down the road, and oh man, I coulda.
Yeah,
you know?
no kidding.
So anyway, then I went to the Olympic Training Center, and I shot for a couple years there, traveled, shot, and did everything. And then at that point, I burned out mentally. Probably I was just tired of it, and the whole future, and you're young, and you know, people are getting jobs, and you're not.
Yeah.
So I went back home, and when I got back home, I think I had aspirations of maybe shooting some more, but it faded. I was just tired of it, and from there, it just kind of just disappeared. The urge to competitively shoot that sport.
Mm-hmm.
So that was what we were gonna say, 92.
So did you do anything else then? Did you take up like old man softball or anything?
No,
or?
I don't think I did much of anything other than, I bought some houses. I had some rental properties. Worked at the family business. Worked on the farm that we still had. I didn't live there at the time. No, 92. But I'd go up there and we'd hunt. We'd do work, and my grandparents lived there. So I occupied my life with other things.
Right.
And I thoroughly enjoyed everything I did, and I enjoyed working with my hands, taking care of the rental properties, cutting wood on the farm, doing all that. So then probably the next time I really shot was when my dad decided to get into sporting clays, and of course he always goes overboard, so he bought a shotgun and a chronograph and this and that, and he was all into it. And so we go out with him and shoot sporting clays, which was fun.
Yeah, sporting clays is a kick in the pants.
Yeah, and we had some great places back east to shoot, and so that was fun. But it wasn't competitive. We went to a few regional shoots, but nothing that stuck.
So there was no spark on the sporting clays part of it for you? It was just like, this is something fun to do with Dad?
Yeah, and my brother. It
Yeah.
was kind of a family thing.
Right.
And I was super competitive, don't get me wrong. And even at the same time, we went pheasant hunting a couple times. And we were out, we rented a handler and a dog, and they put out birds. And I shot a couple pheasants out from under my brother. And he's a good shot, don't get me wrong. He is no slouch with any gun. But he got so mad that the next one came up, and he drilled it so close that he just destroyed it because he was going to get it before I did. That was funny. Family story there, but we still talk about that one.
Oh man, yeah. I've got a similar one. The first time I went pheasant hunting, I let one go because these were wild birds, and in Nebraska with family, and I let one go because it just scared the crap out of me.
Yeah.
And then my cousins are so fast on the gun, because they do that all the time, that they shot them. So then the very next one that pops up, I was like, well, I'm not letting this one go. And, I got it probably 4.5 feet from the end of my barrel, and it was demolished.
Man.
And they were giving me a hard time, like, well, I got him.
You got to let him get out a little more.
Rookie mistake,
Yeah.
my bad.
I think our handler was worried about his dog because we were so quick that,
Yeah.
But needless to say, we weren't going to shoot his dog.
Of course.
We were good enough to not do that. But
So you shot sporting clays for a couple of years.
Yeah, just on and off. Yep.
When did you find 3-gun?
Well, I guess in 2009 I decided, well, let me get into pistol shooting. Just whatever reason, I don't know.
Had you shot much pistol up to that point?
No, very little. Actually, hardly any.
Mm-hmm.
Just plinking maybe with 22s,
Yeah.
but that's it. So I bought a SIG 226 40. I looked at my sports before I bought the gun, I think. No, I bought the gun first. I had bought a couple pistols. And I said, okay, IDPA, USPSA. And I went, let me look. Let me decide which one. I said, let me go to IDPA. Because there was a local club, and, so I went to IDPA. And
you're still in Jersey at this point,
yeah,
right? Okay.
Yeah, and, it was always harrowing transporting a gun because, the wrong police officer at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Give you, but we did it legally and all that.
Sure.
But still, it's always this gremlin on your back. So that was 2009. I started shooting, and right away, first classifier made expert. So in SSP, by the end of the year, I was a 5-gun master.
Really?
Yeah, so it's just something that came to me. I shot all the revolvers and the single stacks, and I kind of faded into revolvers more because I felt it more of a challenge. It was great to shoot a revolver and beat the SSP guys and semi-autos. That was a kick in the ass.
That's cool.
And then that in 2000, I don't know at what point, but it faded into USPSA, where
Did you shoot revolver in USPSA too?
Somewhat. I actually started with a 646, the 10 millimeter. It was the 10 millimeter revolver that you shoot 40s in.
Oh wow!
It's a Smith & Wesson. I had a titanium cylinder and all. I still got it.
That's cool.
So I'd shoot revolver. Shot with Jerry Micklick a couple times at the IDPA Nationals before that on the Super Squad, the Revolver Squad.
Revolver Squad.
Yeah, that was fun. And Jerry's a good guy.
Side note: I've always wanted to shoot revolver in a match.
Yeah.
It seems like a very expensive thing to get into to try out, and then find I'm going to go back to 3-gun, but it just looks cool as heck, especially when you're watching people toss the rounds in there, and it's he let go before that was even in the cylinder. Yeah. It's so fast.
Well, chamfered cylinders. You kind of open them up a little bit. You game your gun as best you can.
Sure.
Yeah, and it's fun because you really have to think. I mean, you're limited with the amount of rounds. You don't want to reload because reloads take more time.
Yeah.
Because you got to eject it, go throw another one in. And
when I started shooting 3-gun, I was just all over the place because I was trying to go super fast. And one of my early mentors at the range I used to shoot at, Ben Go, said, "Well, you should shoot USPSA production." And after a while, I figured out that he wanted me to shoot USPSA production because it teaches you accuracy and it teaches you to be more mindful with your rounds rather than just going off like a maniac.
That's what revolver is even worse than.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're severely limited at that point.
That's where I learned a lot of discipline and to look at your sight because you got to look at your sight through the whole trigger pull, and you're limited to the amount of rounds. So it makes you plan the stage really good. So,
that's pretty cool.
Yep. But nowadays, when they went up to the 8-shot revolvers and the minor scoring, my 625 doesn't hold as well out there.
Yeah, it's not nearly as competitive now.
But then, so got into USPSA, and then eventually that morphed into 3-gun through pretty much going to a team match, I think.
A 3-gun team match?
Yeah, 3-man, 3-gun. It was held at York in Pennsylvania.
Okay. At
their Isaac Walton League, and they still hold that shoot every year. Went there with some local shooters and had a good time, and kind of had my Mossberg 590 pump gun with improved cylinder and loading underneath and doing all that. Shot real well with it. So then that obviously morphed into 3-gun. Just USPSA for me is just a practice session for 3-gun basically at this point.
So you've been shooting 3-gun strong for 8 years then?
Well, it was 09. So probably 11, 12, probably 4 to 6 years. Yeah, I can't remember. I have to look back. Probably 2012. I was probably shooting pretty solid, and now thinking back, wow, I've been shooting a while.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, so what was it about 3-gun then that made you think okay, this is going to be my game from here on out?
Well, it's harder than USPSA because you got 3 guns. Not that USP is easy, but with 3 guns, you got 3 times the challenges and all that. So I think that was part of it. I was good at the mental game, and it really plays into 3-gun because if you don't have a mental game with 1 gun, man, you're not gonna have anything with 3 of them because you gotta have that all set up before that buzzer goes off. Where stuff is, everything's placed, and you gotta be on target, with everything.
So did you understand stage planning to begin with?
No, I think I developed it and watched a lot of. I mean, I don't think I get to have the best stage plans, but what I glean from others during the walkthroughs and stuff helps me.
Right.
I'll have to say that's one of my faults. Sometimes I don't see every aspect. I'm really trying to stand in different positions and not just go up, oh, this is great, this will work. No, this may work. Let's go over here, look at this. Let's go over here, look at this.
Yeah.
Well, if I do this, how am I going to do that? And that, I think stage planning comes naturally to some, but to me, it doesn't always come out 100%. So, I'll have to say that's one of my weaknesses right now.
So that's an interesting weakness, and it's probably difficult to work on because you can't just practice in your house.
Yep.
Throw targets on the wall and how would I run this? It's you've got to get there and do it. And
yeah, and I think again, let's go back to the mental aspect.
Mm-hmm.
My mental aspect is I get stuck in a hole. In other words, I'll walk up to the stage and I'm going to do it this way.
Yeah.
I have to break out of that and say, let me look at different ways. And I think that's where I've broken that link, of going in and saying, oh, I got to shoot it one way. No, let's look at it this way. Let's look at it that way.
Right.
So, and that's mental too, because you have to force yourself to mentally think a little bit differently.
Yeah. So I kind of do that same thing. I definitely like to stick with the first thing that I come up with. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I'm hesitant to look at other plans because I don't want to lose or forget that first thing, mm-hmm. that first plan that I came up with.
Yep.
So how do you? Okay, so the stage that we shot, the octagon's a pretty good example, right? Because there's like a dozen ways to shoot that.
Stage one.
Stage one. Yeah, they called it
sure.
the octagon. There's paper targets that you can shoot with rifle, pistol, or slug. There's clay targets, obviously shotgun. There's poppers, and there's round steel targets, like 10-inch targets. You can shoot those with pistol, or you can shoot those with shotgun. So there's a ton of options on ways to do it, mm-hmm. and different places that you could see different targets. So we probably saw 4 or 5 stage plans on our squad alone.
Least, yep.
And you and I both chose to do slugs. Yours was a little different because you have the A5, so your load plan was just a little bit different. But I don't think anyone else on our squad shot slugs at those paper targets.
No, and I don't know why. I mean, again, maybe they got caught in a groove. Maybe they don't like slugs, but slugs were 5-yard, 6-yard shots.
Yeah.
They weren't far,
no.
So that wasn't an accuracy issue.
No.
Maybe they don't load well. I knew I could hit my loads, so I didn't think that was a problem. Everybody sees it differently, and that's I saw something and I was like, I'm going with that. I feel comfortable, and I looked at several different scenarios. I said, okay, if I get my pistol, I got to come back here. And watching everybody, okay, I see them go up and then they come back and they
mm-hmm.
shoot this. It's like, you already took that land. Why go backwards? And
yeah, and for me, my thought was, let's lose that transition to the pistol because dumping that shotgun, there's a lot of what ifs on that, right? So
mm-hmm.
Is it empty? Do I get that safe on there?
Yeah.
Do I get it in the barrel?
Yep.
Now I've got to do that and then go to my pistol, and then if the pistol, there was a lot of what ifs on that,
sure.
and I think you could do it pretty fast either way. But so when you approach that stage like on Thursday and you're
mm-hmm.
walking it,
mm-hmm.
how do you look at multiple stage plans on that and then talk yourself into the slug plan?
Well, I sit back and I say, okay, where do I have to be? I have to be here for this target. I have to be here for this target. What can I see here? What can I see there? And I come up with a basic plan sometimes. Then I'll sit back and I'll watch people go through. And I'll be like, I'll look and I'll see him. Okay, I see him stepping back. I don't like that. How can I not do that? How can I, and I'm like, okay, so you can shoot slugs on paper. And I really didn't think about it that day. It was more that night that I said, it kind of, the epiphany came. I said, why go to pistol? Why go to pistol and have to walk back and shoot that target?
Right.
And it's like, I'm right there. I said, I can stop in one position and shoot 12 shots right here. No transition. And I have all that time to load. I said it made sense. And to me, in my A5 plan, didn't matter because my plan was 8 shots. I had shot 9, but it didn't matter because I still had enough in my loads to finish right where I needed to.
I got you.
It kind of helped, I guess, because I ran dry
right.
coming around. I loaded 6
Right.
And it didn't matter. I didn't have to port load, but still you had time. So, but yeah, and it just came to me, and I said, "Oh, that looks like a good plan." And obviously, it's, I don't know. Last I looked, it was top 5 time. So,
oh, cool.
You know, it was a good time. You know. Yep.
Yeah. So another stage that I thought, man, there's like 5 or 6 good plans on this one too. Was the Alamo stage.
Yep.
It's a platform on top. You're shooting rifle. There's 2 skinny Sammies and then 6 targets,
yep.
right?
Yep, 3 and 3. Yep.
Which I shot 5. I'll be honest, I left one. I forgot about one. And then you can abandon your rifle, run down the stairs, and then there's a doorway, and then to either side of that doorway are 2 ports.
Yep.
There's steel targets available through those ports, and then there's clays and a propeller rack for shotgun only through the doorway. So that one, you could choose to shoot pistol through the ports. You can shoot. You can hot reholster. You can dump your pistol. You can shoot shotgun through the ports. There's a lot of options on that one.
Yep.
And that one also ended up a good stage for you as well.
Yes, very good. Yep. So far, stage win, but we'll see how that holds up.
So how do you decide between, when I think of the pistol, a lot of times I think I have 23 tries. When I think of the shotgun, I think I have 9 tries. Until you load or whatever. But so how do you decide between the 2 on those? Because you're pretty proficient at both of them.
Well, again, I came up there to watch some of the better shoot it because I really didn't have a solid plan going into that one because there were so many options. Where do I shoot what? So I kind of look back and look at the better shoot it, and I saw a plan that worked, and I said, that looks good. I liked it because it was one position with a pistol, a hot reholster, more with a shotgun, which, again, I'm good with. I'm actually more confident with a shotgun than I am with a pistol. The loads being left-handed worked for me because I was moving in the correct direction, moving to my left for loading. So that's kind of why I chose that plan, the one I did, and I went over and I said, okay, what if I shoot more from this? Does that benefit me? No, because I still got a load here.
Right.
If there were 3 more plates that I could have shot through that port, it would have been a tougher angle, but it didn't benefit me. I would still have to double quad load because I only quad load. I mean, sometimes I grab 2, but again, I wanted to quad load. It wouldn't have benefited me.
Right.
So I go through different scenarios. What if I shoot this? Well, how's that do over here? Well, it didn't work. So, and Keith Garcia had just shot a great time, the stage win, at 45 seconds on that stage. So I said, and I liked what I saw. I don't always follow his plan because it's his plan.
Yeah.
I felt it worked. And so I shot it in 44, and same plan. So just you look through the different scenarios and what do I feel today? Sometimes your pistol's not on.
Yeah.
Sometimes your shotgun's not on. So, play to the strengths of your firearms if you have a choice. So that's what I did on that one.
So this may sound like an obvious question, but do you feel that your trap experience with the shotgun helps with your shotgun shooting in 3-gun? Because we don't shoot a lot of moving targets. So do all those reps still translate to shooting stationary targets?
Absolutely.
And do you feel like that's why it's one of your strong suits?
Yeah, exactly. Shooting a shotgun is the same in trap as it should be in 3-gun.
Okay.
Your shotgun should fit you. When you put your shotgun up, just like your rifle, as you put it up solid, you should be looking right down the barrel. And your upper body should move as one, and wherever you're looking should be where your shotgun's pointing. In trap, we never look at the front bead because that's death. You got to look at the target.
Right.
Your focus is on the target. Your mind will establish lead. It will know how fast that thing's going. You let the computer work. You just have to make sure you're focused on the target. When you're not, that's when you miss. So and I bring that experience of my shotgunning into 3-gun because everything, the upper body's solid. You can look where you're shooting and look at the target. If you're focused on it, that's where your gun should be. You don't have to necessarily look at the bead. Now, sometimes you do have to aim your shotgun,
right.
even on birdshot targets because they're small.
Sure.
You can't just fly by them. So it definitely helps. And throughout my life, I've shot shotgun besides the competition side, the trap in the yard and in the field, and just grabbing a shotgun and going out and shooting whatever's
right.
All that that feel that that definitely helps today in 3-gun.
So what are some things that? Sorry, that was dumb to scratch my ear when I was talking. Move the microphone away.
That was good. Yeah.
I'm new at this.
I know.
So,
I'm trying to be professional over here.
So when what are some things that you see 3-gunners do shotgun wise that they can easily improve? What's like some low hanging fruit?
Low hanging fruit is make your shotgun fit you. So many people. I modified my stock.
I noticed that.
I cut out the comb. I put a piece of solid foam in there and drilled a hole through so the rod goes through. All that. Why? Because I want that gun to come up and fit me. So many people just use their regular stock, and that stock's meant to fit everybody in the U.S. and foreign countries as well.
Turkey.
So to me, you could, if you put your face down, you're looking at the receiver. If you pick it up, you've got space between your beads. You're not always on target. It may not be right.
Mm-hmm.
So shotgun fit the damn thing. Adjust the butt pad. I mean, we're all built differently.
Right.
If I have more muscle here, well, my pad needs to be angled like that. Why? Because I got the muscle here. Now, if I have a regular flat pad, what do I got? Now I have a gap here. Because if it's hitting here, what's going to happen? It's going to rock back.
Recoil. Huh.
So, it's just muzzle rise you'll get. Same thing left to right. If you're off to the side, I mean, you can get some side movement too. So shotgun fits huge, and people I don't see many people take note of it.
I'll admit that, mine came with some shims and stuff, I think, but I haven't touched it. And
what do you shoot? Versamax?
It's a Stoger.
Yeah, when I shot the Versamax, they had an adjustable comb piece. I put that in right away, and it was perfect. It was like great. When I went to the A5, I said, I don't have a comb piece. I'll make one. I don't care how it looks. It's all about how it shoots.
Yeah.
That and stance. I think a lot of people don't present themselves correctly to targets, and they cause themselves to be shooting off balance. When you go up to a target and you have a wide open stance and your target's like this narrow, in other words, you're only shooting here, why have a wide open stance? You're shooting right there. You're not shooting from here to here.
Right.
You're shooting right here. So when you go up, I'm like a standing rifle shooter. I'm coming up that thing bladed right to him. So, all my recoil's into my body. I'm not off balance. If I'm shooting like this, the recoil can rock me back. If I'm like this, you're stronger at that point. And then if people get up and it's a wide array, sometimes they screw themselves, because if they're shooting over here and then being left-handed and they get over here, well, you're fighting the tension.
Right.
Whereas maybe if you turn your body more, wind the spring up, and then release the spring, by the time you get to here, you're in more of a neutral position, because you don't want to be fighting your body and the tensions in it.
Yeah.
I think that has a lot to do with it.
That's a good point. So I've noticed myself doing that quite a bit. Is when we have like real wide array targets, my natural tendency is to start bladed or facing or whatever that first target, rather than, like you said, winding the spring up. So you're kind of to describe for people that aren't watching, you're facing, say, the middle of the array, and you're moving to the side that you're going to start on. Yeah. You're twisting yourself up, and then, like you said, you unwind that spring as you come across.
Yep. Yeah. It's something that I see people constant, and it may not affect them, but I don't see the benefit to it.
Mm-hmm.
I see a better benefit of unwinding the spring,
Mm-hmm.
watching your natural shooting positions and not being off balance.
Mm-hmm. One thing you pointed out for me is when I was shooting rifle on that octagon stage, I had my stance too close.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a lot of times, especially in bays, so I want to have like just a natural, just normal pistol stance where I'm relaxed and everything when I shoot pistol. But I feel that like carries over to the rifle too a lot of times, where I'm not nearly as conscious about it if those shots are not, air quotes, difficult or hard.
Yeah.
Then I don't pay it enough respect. And like you said, it was rocking me back, and I was taking way too much time to make follow-up shots.
Yep. And exactly. Any long gun, you want to make sure your body position is such that you're controlling your gun. Don't let the gun control you.
Right.
More so on the shotgun because it recoils more.
Sure.
Sometimes depends on the shotgun. But even in a rifle, you want to use your body to control that rifle and not fight your body when you're going from side to side.
Right.
So
Joe, let's switch gears up a little bit here and talk about consistency. It's it's something that eludes a lot of people, right? They'll have smoking stage, burn it down for their skill level, and then the next stage will just be train wreck, dropping shells, forgetting to charge your rifle.
Yeah.
Like I do every single time we have an uncharged rifle. How do you approach consistency in your game, and how do you think of consistency, and then maybe tell us where you're at with your own consistency?
Well, as far as I struggle with that myself, and to where yesterday went from very high good stage down to a really bad stage. And I attribute that to, number one, on the bad stage, my mental game wasn't there. But why? Why was my mental game not there? I have a mental game. I think I had to do with how my body felt. I don't think I properly fed it correctly throughout the day, and I think I suffered at the end. So I need to be more consistent in my diet to keep my body consistent, so that I am consistent in my mental game, which keeps me consistent on each stage.
Sure.
So, it's just you got to start here, and you got to build this and build that and make sure this is here, because if this is here, then this should be here, and if this is here, then that's going to be there. And I think when I've shot my best matches, I've paid more attention to my body, because even though you don't know it, if you're draining, if you're not getting enough fluid, not enough energy, your mind's going too.
Yeah.
You may not know it.
Yep.
But you'll know it when you get up there and you start shooting and things start not feeling right and you're rushing, you're not doing things the way you should. It's because you haven't properly fed this beast down here and built up on that.
I think something that a lot of people can relate to is maybe snapping at your children or your spouse or something like that, and then later on thinking like, wow, I was just hungry, and I was a little hangry there, and maybe flew off a little bit. But that's something that we deal with in Three Gun as well, because this is it's generally an all-day event, right?
Yep.
So today, right? You stayed at a hotel,
Yep.
So you had to wake up before the crack of dawn. You had to fuel yourself, come out here for luckily today was only one stage before the rain, but like on Friday we're shooting 4 stages, so we're I think we were done by like 1 o'clock or something like that. 12:30. Yeah. So you're shooting from 7 to 12:30. That's 5 hours, and you have to be in the game the whole time, walking the stages between shooters, resetting and things like that, and you're expending calories and all the stuff that you need to keep that mental focus. And I don't see a lot of people paying attention to that.
Yep. Nutrition is huge. I mean, look at runners and all that. I mean, they have to fuel it right, or else they won't be able to run. Well, they're running. I mean, they have a mental game too. Don't get me wrong, but they need to make sure their fuel's there, and it's more important for them. But I think it's equally as important to us.
Yeah.
You know, to keep that fuel. And you're right. I mean, I've some people do it better than others. You know, but definitely something we need to focus on.
Yeah. So what do you do then? Like say a day like Friday, where we had to be up early, had to be on the stage before sunrise. We're shooting at sunrise, and then we're done by lunchtime. A lot of people think like, you know, I don't know, for whatever reason, a lot of people in their mid-30s, 40s, et cetera, just stop eating breakfast. It's just something I've noticed from heard feedback from a lot of people. And then you figure, like, well, we're going to be done shooting at 12:30, and then we'll just go grab lunch. Yeah. Right. So, but that whole time, you know, again, you're working hard, you're expending calories and stuff. So, what does your nutrition look like? And then if you have any areas where you see like, oh, I need to improve, what do you think that those would be?
Well, I tried. I'm still kind of doing a low carb diet, trying to shed some of the poundages because that was a big lightning bolt. Yeah. And so I'm struggling with that and 3-gun right now. How do I not get this empty calories of fast, sugar, but still maintain the energy level? I have found in my life that a low carb diet makes me more even. It doesn't give me the spikes where I get hangry, and it's a more level thing. So that's new to me. Prior to that, I would typically like to go out and eat a big breakfast. Typically lots of fat and calories, just wolf it down, because certain things stay with me better, and I have an iron stomach, I don't get upset. But, eat a lot of fat and protein, and use that, and then force myself at such a point to eat, a power bar, banana, something to get that energy, but make sure it's not right before I shoot. Right. So I have to think, okay, when am I up? Okay, I just shot. I got this much time. Okay, I'll eat real quick. Then that'll be in my bloodstream and normalize by the time I shoot again.
The timing is super important. I'm kind of weird. Like before, so I work at a CrossFit type gym, and I did for a number of years back home too. And before workouts, like I would always get like nervous stomach and like, oh, I gotta pee, but I don't really have to pee. And then did like 5Ks, 10Ks, obstacle races, stuff like that. And beforehand, I always had like nervous stomach to where like the first mile, I'm like hawking loogies and like almost vomiting and stuff. This is great for people, by the way. I hope you're not eating when you listen to this. But the same thing happens to me before a stage. This morning I went light, had like protein shake before we came, and then I was still thinking like I might throw up before we shoot here.
Yeah, I get the opposite nervousness.
Do you?
The opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah, I got you.
Usually, I mean that's coming into a match. It's usually first stage jitters. After that I'm good. But yeah.
Well, you get the Hunter Sykes type of.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So I on that note, I think eating after you shoot. Like while you're putting your empty magazines away and you've got that time where you're not expected to reset, it's probably a pretty good time to do it.
It is.
And, probably nothing like you don't want to have like, 2 hamburgers and a sack of fries. But, if you've got like a banana or an apple or something like that, maybe.
And you have to watch. I mean, everybody should watch their body and what they're good at eating. I mean, what works for you?
How's Raid of the Ring just like all of a sudden stop?
I think that may have been air conditioner.
Oh.
I don't know. But yeah, I mean, if you're not used, make sure it's a food you're used to dealing with. Yeah. You don't want to eat something, oh, this is what so-and-so's eating. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is making my sugar spike to nth degree. And then you get out there and you're like,
exactly.
Nervous. So, like drink a Monster right before you shoot, if you do that all the time, great. But if you don't, watch it.
Yeah.
Things will go weird on you.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of like that too. Like I love my morning coffee ritual. But these times where we have to get up and we're here before sunrise, like sometimes I just can't like get like a whole cup of coffee down, and I know that it negatively affects me throughout the day, but if I try to like chug a whole cup of coffee and then go shoot a stage, I'm just gonna be like out of my mind.
Oh,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah, okay. Yep, yeah. and that's the things you have to watch with, fueling the body.
Yeah.
It's making sure you're comfortable with what you're doing and you know it. You know?
And it's you say you feel in your body, but your brain too. If you like your blood sugar dips and stuff like that, you start to forget stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Again, you snap at your friends and stuff like that or something. You lose like your visual acuity and everything. And water is a huge thing with that as well.
Absolutely. You can't drink enough. I mean, just drink water.
Yeah.
You know? A bottle per stage is good.
Yeah.
You know? And you'll be fine then, but yeah, have to drink.
Yeah, and the bottle per stage is a good benchmark, I think, especially like out here in the the hot Texas heat.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you don't want to necessarily drink water. You're like, oh, I'm fine, but it's you don't like know you need water until it's absolutely too late.
Yep. And I agree, and that's why I'll throw one in my pocket as I'm resetting. I'll drink some, put it in my pocket, reset. It's right there. Drink it, so I don't have to go back to the car.
Right.
Cargo pants are good for that.
Heck yeah. So what kind of food or snacks do you bring to keep you going on the road?
The granola bars, the not apples so much, but bananas, fruit. The occasional Monster. Sometimes you need it. But it's all dependent on what stage it is. If it's a precision rifle stuff, maybe not.
Yeah.
But if it's like some gung-ho shotgun thing, maybe. If it's the last stage, you just got to measure everything. Got to see where everything's at and feel your body and know, okay, I can do this. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
But and again, even bananas and granola bars tend to spike you up. So it's all timing when you eat that. I don't like to be real spiked when I shoot, so
Right.
I'll eat it, or like you said, right after you shoot, eat it. Hopefully by the time you get there.
Yeah, because that'll carry you out into the next stage.
Yeah,
right?
and try to eat some proteins and stuff. Whole stuff like turkeys and roast beefs, and again trying to go to the low carb. It's very difficult.
Yeah,
but a little bit of that doesn't hurt, but it gives you that protein that your brain likes, to feed on.
Sure.
Yeah.
I've found that as well. Like when you're, in the air quote sports snacks section at the grocery store, it's a ton of granola, and they've got fruit in there and stuff like that. That's got a ton of carbs. The shot blocks, the goos, all that stuff is just like straight up sugar. So I guess like handfuls of nuts have been pretty decent for me.
Yep.
Mild, keeping you in
and
there.
I do that at work, and again, I'm trying to, since I'm kind of new at the low carb, coming out here, I don't think I was prepared as I should have been.
Okay.
And I'm away from home, and, it's just,
it gets you out of your
traveling,
routine.
and, but at work, when I sit at work, I got a bag of nuts, so, okay, that's easy.
Yeah.
I sit at a desk all day, so. But out here, I think I need to work on that nutrition plan. And I think it affected me yesterday. Not so much in the morning, but the afternoon yesterday wasn't where I should have been.
On that final stage?
The final stage and the one before that even. I didn't, my mental game wasn't there, and it should have been. And if I, again, why wasn't my mental game there?
Sure.
Let's go to my body. What was my body feeling? And I remember thinking, well, it's not quite where I want it to be. So, and that may have affected it. Oh, we're being rudely interrupted here.
By Nick Atkinson.
Plug me in. Put me in, coach.
You can talk to the camera.
Yeah, you don't get a headset. Why aren't you shooting? What's wrong with you? What?
Talk to me. Nobody can hear me.
That's Nick Atkinson. He doesn't want to shoot anymore. He quit.
Nick's done shooting? All right. So, Joe, the mental we're just hearing some flood warnings going on.
Yeah, probably.
So the mental aspect, nutrition, what other type of things do you think that you need to work on in your game after the match is over here? What are you going to take home with you and work on better for next time?
I think long range was one of my things I don't get to practice enough of. And it showed out there. It's a new gun, but I'm not going to blame that because it was accurate enough. But getting the setups and I shot that long range stage. I said that didn't seem too bad, but the time sucked. I was like, where was that? Looking at the video, it's transitions from one position to another and whatnot. That's one thing. And just go back to the basics on like the pistol and the shotgun, making sure you're seeing the front sight. Because on the stage 5, with where you ran around, shot all the shotgun, I missed too many times. Why? Well, number one, I didn't have my mental game wasn't there. That was fading into the next stage.
Yeah.
And so, work on making sure that the shotgun sight, you're seeing it, you're knowing where it is. Because I was just going like a spaz over there. So.
Right.
That's a lot of times what I bring back, and you always bring back a little bit from each match, and that's probably.
And you got to improve on it.
You
got to work on it.
Yeah, and they get smaller and smaller. Hopefully, you don't have a big bucket to choose from. But.
I think on that same array that you're talking about it was the red stitch targets stage. They had I don't know what they call it, but it's like a propeller rack type thing, but it has 3 plates on the end that are also on propellers. So
it's
like
a double star. Yeah.
Double star, is that what they call it? I had I think like 4 makeups on that to where it was like, what the F am I doing here? And I looked down as I'm getting ready to load again, and I could see my my vent rib. And I was like, I'm not supposed to be seeing that while I'm shooting, so obviously I had, took my cheek off the stock and everything. So that's a stupid, rookie mental mistake that I, made there on that one. That's something I need to work on.
Yeah, and just again reinforce that. Here's what it looks like. Here's what it looks like. Here's what it looks like, and burn that into your brain so that every time you put it up, you know what that sight picture should look like.
Right.
Especially on a shotgun.
Yeah, no kidding.
And a pistol.
The match is over. We know what we're going to be working on here. What sort of advice would you give someone who's listening to this as far as like their game? Do you have any sort of like final thought that you can give people?
I don't know. As far as what I do, I mean, practice. Get the basics. Just I consistently practice accuracy with a rifle, with a pistol, even with a shotgun. Burn that in so that when you get up there, that you don't have to think about it. It's just you naturally know what that sight should look like. You naturally know what that shotgun should feel like, and the rifle. I think that's a big thing. And there's a lot of other little things I see people do that they could use practice on, but that's kind of just my general thing is just practice that accuracy. Speed, yeah, but if you shoot fast and miss a lot, well, we won't talk about him.
So Joe, final question for you. We're done with the match.
Okay.
My audience really seems to love this question. Can you tell me about your most spectacular disqualification?
Oh yes, this is an easy one. I drove with 2 friends of mine down to Task Force Dagger, so 12-hour trip down to Georgia.
Got there a couple years ago?
Yeah, this was the last one they had.
Okay.
Whatever year that was, I can't remember anymore. I get up, first stage. You had a slung rifle, shotgun was staged, I believe. So, no, your shotgun was something was in your hand. Shotgun was slung, rifle in hand, pistol holstered, hot, loaded. Get up there. You start position A, you got to run to position B and shoot rifle. So I'm running, and I felt my arm bump something. I'm running. I get up. I'm just about to crack a shot, and I hear, stop. Look down. No pistol.
No pistol.
Didn't fire a shot.
Really?
First stage. Never cracked a shot. And that was when the skies opened up and it got rain like this, and they had feet of water, and it was the epic torrential downpours, and I didn't get to shoot it. So, but yeah, that was pretty much my most spectacular DQ there.
So did it bounce out, or did the?
I hit it with my arm.
You hit it with your arm,
or something hit it. I don't think it was the rifle because that was slung this way. My pistol's here.
Oh, okay.
So I think I hit it, like running with my arm. So I didn't have a retention holster, just
Right.
and then I don't know if I had thumb screws or not. I had M&Ps.
Did you make any changes? Do you do a retention holster now?
Yeah, no. I mean, I just make sure my screws are tight.
Oh, okay.
I don't use a hood or anything. I don't see the need for it. I just more cautious.
Right.
Loosen them, tighten them. Depends on the stage, how I'm starting. So that was it. That was number one. I was like, oh man, that was not even a shot.
That's rough.
So yeah,
Not one shot
not
done.
one shot.
Wow, that's rough. Well, I feel for you there. Well, Joe,
Yeah.
this this has been a fun talk. It's been a great weekend, man. Really
Yep.
enjoyed shooting with you
Same here.
and getting to know you over the weekend.
Yep.
And looking forward to seeing you again on the range. And hey, thanks for being on the 3 Gun Show, man.
Hey, thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
Hey, before you take off, check out the show notes at 3gunshow.com/episode 124 for info on the book club that we're going to be doing and links to things that we discussed in the podcast. Now, I mentioned earlier that this episode is brought to you by Armalite. Armalite has chosen to sponsor the show for the 2017 season, which I'm really grateful for. And as part of that, we try to figure out a way that we can make a big benefit for you as the listener as well. So Armalite has allowed me to get special pricing for you on their line of 3-gun rifles, both the 13.5 inch with the pin muzzle brake that brings it to an overall length of 16 inches, and the 18-inch rifle as well as their competition handguards, gas blocks, and their tunable muzzle brakes, which is really cool. So if you're in the market for a 3-gun rifle or components to build your own, email me at dave@3gunshow.com and I can get you pricing. Thank you so much for downloading, listening, and subscribing to the show. I'm Dave Hartman, and I'll see you on the range.
If you are finished, unload, show clear.